morning, and welcome to another episode of Edelweiss Money Konnect podcast, your go-to place for collecting investment gems from stories, conversation, and book summaries. In today's episode, our CEO and MD, Radhika Gupta, shares small nudges with you for investing better. You will learn how simple investment advice and tips can help you achieve financial independence.
Have you ever wondered why successful people sometimes go bankrupt, even after earning large amounts of money? Why people keep balances on their credit cards and pay high interest rates on borrowed funds when they actually have savings to pay the bills? And why it seems so hard for Indians to set aside regular savings for retirement, even though we know we really should? These seeming paradoxes can all be traced back to a concept you may have seen popping up in a conversation recently: managing behavior. We as investors often get distracted from our long-term goals by short-term market volatility. How do you nudge yourself to become a better investor? When we review our investments, particularly in years like the ones that just passed, volatile, uncertain, confusing, we often reflect on all the mistakes we as investors made. Not grabbing opportunities, stopping our SIPs too early, not investing enough maybe. So why does this happen? Is it because we don't know what is good for us, despite being told time and again in talks, media, literature, and our own experiences? Or is it just because we are human, and like humans, we have biases in investments and otherwise, and make mistakes despite knowing what is good for us? While there are many books written on behavioral biases, it's always important to have solutions. What can we do about them? Two renowned American authors, Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein, wrote precisely about solutions in the form of nudges in a book called Nudge. What is a nudge? It's a small push, a change in a way to frame a problem, a slight feature change that makes you do things that are good for you that you may have not done otherwise. Let's take a simple example of a nudge in real life. Eating healthy food, something that many mothers struggle with their children over. Imagine if you have two kinds of food, healthy fruits and unhealthy chocolates. If you place both together on the same dining table, chances are the chocolates will be eaten first. However, if the chocolates are on a high shelf in a kitchen cupboard and are hard to find, and the fruits are in the center of the table in full view and access, don't you think the consumption of fruits relative to chocolates will go up? Nudges work very effectively for us as mutual fund investors and advisors too. So today, let's take a deep dive into 6 simple nudges that can be effective catalysts in mutual fund investing. The first nudge is incentives. Humans respond to incentives because we are motivated by rewards. In a simple experiment in the US, when you change the display on the thermostat, which regulates heating, from just showing temperature to also showing the cost of heating, you actually saw less people increasing the temperature. Similarly, in mutual funds, advisors can incentivize investors, and investors can reward family members who show good investment behavior. Saving more, investing when markets are weak. I actually saw an advisor celebrate investors who invested the most after markets fell 6% a few years ago at an award ceremony in Kerala, and it was a really powerful statement. The second nudge is mapping. Investing concepts, as we know, can be abstract and sometimes need to be mapped to your reality. Very few of us actually understand the difference between a 3 megapixel and a 5 megapixel digital camera. But we know what it means when one camera can take a 4:6 photo clearly versus another one that can take a 10:12 photo clearly. Similarly, in investments, the difference between a 10,000 rupee per month SIP versus a 20,000 rupee per month SIP is abstract. But maybe when you translate the first into being able to buy a 1 BHK home in 10 years and the second into being able to buy a 2 BHK home in 10 years, the comparison becomes a lot more real and meaningful. Translate money into real objectives. The third nudge is default. We love the default option, the easiest one, whether it is the dish that the chef recommends when we are confused at a restaurant or installing the recommended option in a software package. Defaults are the most basic human tendency, and use them to your advantage by making good options perpetual SIPs in mutual funds, nominees in bank accounts, the default automated SIP top-ups with an increase in your yearly income as the default option. The fourth nudge is feedback. Did you know that one of the reasons that photography took off as a hobby in a big way was when the digital camera came? Because it gave an individual instant feedback on his work, unlike old school cameras. Investing often feels like an analog camera. You do something and you don't get feedback on the outcome. As advisors, give investors feedback on what investing at the bottom of the cycle versus what investing at the top of the cycle means for their goals. And as investors, ask your advisors for this feedback. This will make the impact of your actions a lot more real. The fifth nudge is stopping errors. Human beings make predictable errors, but since they are predictable, measures can be put in place to correct them. Many of us who drive cars know that we forget to wear a seatbelt, but we are reminded and warned by the car beep that we better wear it. Similarly, advisors and investors can discuss the common errors that they make in investing. For instance, not having enough in the bank account when the SIP trigger hits, or redeeming when paying exit loads. Once you know the simple errors, you can put in place mechanisms to correct them. The final and sixth nudge is structuring complexity. Imagine if I asked you to find a house in all of Mumbai, or all of Delhi, or all of Bangalore. It's a daunting problem. It has to be broken down into a budget, a size, a locality, with some constraints, boundaries, structures. Investing, with so many categories of funds, markets, events, news, often appears like this as well. As investors and advisors, it's important to structure the complex problem of investing into a few goals that will be solved by a few core categories of funds. When used in a transparent and simple manner, nudges can be a powerful way to become better investors and more peaceful ones at that. Going forward, as we promise to improve our investment habits, use the power of that little nudge and wink to help you. Happy investing.
Don't forget to tune in to the next episode of our Money Konnect podcast. Further, these podcasts are also available on Edelweiss Mutual Fund website, Spotify, Apple Podcast and Google Podcast for you to listen, learn and enjoy as per your convenience. For further information on one-time KYC process, list of SEBI registered mutual funds and redressal of complaints, visit our website, an investor education and awareness initiative of Edelweiss Mutual Fund.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risk. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.